The United States has enacted strict export restrictions designed to limit China's access to vital technologies, especially within the semiconductor and artificial intelligence industries. These actions, which include placing major Chinese companies like Huawei and SMIC on blacklist, expanding the foreign direct product rule, and controlling the export of advanced semiconductor manufacturing equipment, aim to safeguard U.S. national security and preserve its technological lead. In retaliation to U.S. policies, Beijing has heightened trade tensions with Washington by enforcing a ban on exporting certain essential materials critical for high-tech and defense purposes. This measure, viewed as a response to the U.S. tightening technology sanctions on China, was declared by the Chinese Ministry of Commerce on Tuesday. Trade wars are not a new phenomenon. They have been part of global interactions for many years. Before examining the specifics of the current trade dispute, it's important to review the history and consequences of previous trade wars. The Opium Wars were two conflicts in the mid-19th century between China and Western nations, primarily Britain, focused on trade disagreements over opium. These wars significantly affected China's sovereignty and its dealings with foreign powers. In the 18th century, European demand for Chinese goods like silk, porcelain, and tea created a trade imbalance, with silver flowing into China. To address this, the British East India Company began exporting opium from India to China, resulting in widespread addiction and societal problems. The Qing dynasty, concerned about the social impact and the outflow of silver, banned opium in 1796 and 1800. Despite these bans, British traders continued the trade illegally. In 1839, the Daoguang Emperor appointed Lin Zexu as a special commissioner to eliminate the opium trade. Lin seized and destroyed large quantities of opium, prompting Britain to send a naval expedition to China. The British forces, with superior military technology, defeated the Qing army, leading to the Treaty of Nanking in 1842. This treaty ceded Hong Kong to Britain, opened 5 ports to British trade, and imposed reparations on China. Tensions remained, and in 1856 the Second Opium War broke out, with France joining Britain against China. The conflict concluded with the Treaty of Tientsin in 1858 and the Convention of Beijing in 1860. These agreements legalized the opium trade, opened more ports to foreign commerce, allowed foreign embassies in Beijing, and granted foreign ships access to China's inland waterways. The Opium Wars marked the start of China's century of humiliation, resulting in significant territorial losses and reduced sovereignty. The treaties following the wars are often called unequal treaties due to their biased terms favoring Western powers. These events weakened the Qing dynasty and exposed China to increased foreign influence and internal conflict. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930 was a major U.S. law intended to protect American businesses and farmers during the Great Depression by imposing high tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods. Sponsored by Senator Reed Smoot and Representative Willis Hawley, the act raised average tariff rates to nearly 60%, among the highest in U.S. history. The passage of Smoot-Hawley led to immediate retaliation from America's trading partners. Within 2 years, about 24 countries enacted their own tariffs, resulting in a 65% decrease in global trade between 1929 and 1934. For instance, Canada, one of the U.S. largest trading partners, levied tariffs on 16 products, impacting roughly 30% of U.S. exports to Canada. The reduction in international trade worsened the global economic downturn. U.S. imports dropped by 66%, from $4.4 billion in 1929 to $1.5 billion in 1933, while exports declined by 61%, from $5.4 billion to $2.1 billion. This contraction led to widespread unemployment and prolonged the effects of the Great Depression. Economists and historians largely view the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act as a policy failure that deepened the Great Depression. It serves as a warning of how protectionist trade policies can provoke international retaliation and cause severe economic repercussions. The last trade war before the current one happened in 1960 between the EU and the US. In the early 1960s, the United States and several European nations, notably France and West Germany, engaged in a trade dispute known as the Chicken War. This conflict arose when European countries imposed tariffs and price controls on imported U.S. chicken to protect their domestic poultry industries, which were struggling against the influx of affordable American poultry. These measures led to a significant decline in U.S. chicken exports to Europe. In retaliation, President Lyndon B. Johnson's administration in 1964 enacted a 25% tariff on various European imports, including light trucks, potato starch, dextrin, and brandy. This tariff, commonly known as the chicken tax, had a substantial impact on the automotive industry, particularly affecting German manufacturers like Volkswagen, which had been exporting light trucks and vans to the U.S. The imposition of the chicken tax resulted in a sharp decrease in imports of these vehicles, effectively protecting U.S. automakers from foreign competition in the light truck market. Over time, while tariffs on potato starch, dextrin, and brandy were eventually removed, the 25% tariff on light trucks remains in place today. This enduring policy has had lasting effects, including prompting foreign automakers to establish manufacturing plants within the United States to bypass the tariff. Now, let's discuss the current U.S. policy and analyze its lack of success. The U.S. restrictions have driven China to prioritize self-sufficiency. Significant state investments in research and development have allowed companies like SMIC to make considerable progress in semiconductor manufacturing. Domestic innovation in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and telecommunications has surged, fueled by increased funding and government incentives. China has strengthened relationships with non-U.S. technology providers and nations not fully aligned with American policies, such as Russia and some European and Asian countries. Through strategic partnerships and initiatives like the Belt and Road, China has diversified its supply chains and decreased reliance on U.S. technology. The extraterritorial nature of U.S. export controls has strained ties with key allies and partners. Companies like ASML and TSMC have sought to lessen dependency on U.S. technologies to avoid being impacted by the restrictions. Major U.S. technology firms, including NVIDIA, AMD, and Lam Research, have reported substantial revenue losses due to reduced access to the Chinese market. The policy has limited U.S. companies' economies of scale, potentially weakening their global competitiveness over time. Despite the export controls, Chinese companies have introduced advanced products demonstrating technological sophistication. For instance, Huawei's new AI chips and smartphones feature state-of-the-art designs and manufacturing techniques. China's indigenous innovation strategy, supported by state-led initiatives and international collaborations, has driven remarkable advancements across various industries. When did the trade war start? The trade war between the United States and China, initiated during President Trump's first term, marked a significant shift in their economic relationship. The conflict was characterized by the imposition of tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of goods, disrupting trade flows and creating uncertainty in global markets. It began in 2018 when the Trump administration imposed tariffs under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, citing intellectual property theft, forced technology transfers, and unfair trade practices by China. The U.S. also highlighted its large trade deficit with China, which exceeded $375 billion in 2017, as evidence of these imbalances. Let's take a quick pause. If you've enjoyed the video so far, could we ask a small favor? Hitting the like button helps us reach a broader audience, and sharing your thoughts or feedback in the comments makes an even bigger impact. Thank you for watching. Now, let's dive back in. First round of tariffs. The initial wave of tariffs in July 2018 targeted $34 billion worth of Chinese goods, including machinery, electronics, and industrial products, to which China responded with tariffs on U.S. agricultural products like soybeans and pork. By the end of 2019, the U.S. had extended tariffs to $550 billion worth of Chinese imports, covering a wide range of consumer goods such as electronics, textiles, and toys, while China imposed tariffs on $185 billion worth of U.S. exports. These measures significantly increased costs for U.S. businesses reliant on imported goods, often passing the burden onto consumers through higher prices for everyday items. China's reaction. China's retaliatory tariffs heavily impacted American farmers, especially soybean exporters, who saw their sales to China plummet as Beijing turned to alternative suppliers like Brazil. The U.S. government provided over $28 billion in aid to farmers between 2018 and 2020 to offset these losses. Economically, studies indicated that U.S. consumers and businesses bore much of the tariff costs. For example, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York estimated in 2019 that tariffs cost the average American household $831 annually. Meanwhile, Chinese exports to the U.S. declined in key sectors such as machinery and electronics, prompting Beijing to implement measures like diversifying its export markets and increasing domestic consumption. Short agreement? After 2 years of escalating tensions, the U.S. and China signed the Phase 1 trade deal in January 2020. Under the agreement, China committed to purchasing an additional $200 billion of U.S. goods and services over 2017 levels, with specific targets for manufactured goods, agriculture, and energy products. It also pledged to address intellectual property concerns and eliminate forced technology transfers. In return, the U.S. suspended planned tariff increases and reduced some existing tariffs. However, the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted trade flows, and by the end of 2021, China had fulfilled only 60% of its purchasing commitments. The deal also left unresolved issues like state subsidies and industrial policies. The trade war had broader effects on global supply chains, prompting U.S. companies to diversify their sourcing to countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico. It also accelerated economic decoupling, with both nations striving to reduce interdependence. China pursued self-sufficiency in critical industries such as semiconductors, while the U.S. sought to enhance domestic production of strategic goods. Although the trade war did not fully achieve its goals, such as significantly reducing the trade deficit, it marked a turning point in U.S.-China relations. It highlighted deep strategic tensions that continue to shape bilateral policies and global economic dynamics. As the newly elected president, Donald Trump has pledged to impose stricter measures against China, intensifying policies targeting Chinese products and critical technologies. In a significant escalation, the Chinese government announced a complete ban on the export of essential materials to the U.S., including rare earth elements necessary for producing electronics, electric vehicles, and advanced weaponry. The restrictions cover materials such as gallium, germanium, antimony, and superhard substances, all integral to industries like semiconductors, satellite technology, and night vision equipment. Additionally, China indicated plans to impose tighter controls on graphite exports. China, which produces over 70% of the world's rare earths, has utilized its dominant position as a strategic countermeasure. The ban is expected to have extensive effects on U.S. industries and global supply chains. The ban on rare earth exports has caused significant disruptions for U.S. manufacturers reliant on these materials for production. Sectors such as aerospace, renewable energy, and defense are urgently seeking alternative sources with limited success. Prices for rare earth materials have surged, creating supply chain bottlenecks and threatening the competitiveness of U.S. companies. Accelerated global supply chain realignment. China's retaliation underscores the risks of relying on single-source suppliers, prompting U.S. allies to reconsider their positions. While some nations may side with the U.S., others could seek closer ties with China to avoid being entangled in the conflict. The fragmentation of global trade networks could diminish U.S. influence and disrupt long-standing alliances. China's strategic leverage. By exploiting its dominance in critical materials, China has demonstrated its ability to retaliate effectively against U.S. restrictions. This action not only nullifies the impact of new U.S. measures, but also bolsters China's negotiating position. The ban indicates China's willingness to escalate economic confrontation if further provoked, increasing the stakes for future policy decisions. Economic challenges for the U.S. Trump's aggressive stance risks alienating parts of the business community and U.S. allies who depend on stable trade with China. Industries reliant on Chinese goods and materials face rising costs, threatening domestic jobs and growth. The economic backlash could undermine the administration's promises to revive U.S. manufacturing and protect jobs, creating political challenges at home. New currency, war of U.S. and China. President-elect Donald Trump has issued a stern warning to the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, against attempts to establish a new currency that could challenge the U.S. dollar's global dominance. He threatened to impose 100% tariffs on these countries if they proceed with such plans, emphasizing that any move to replace the dollar would lead to significant economic consequences, including restricted access to the U.S. market. China, as a leading BRICS member, has been actively promoting the internationalization of the Chinese yuan or renminbi to reduce dependence on the U.S. dollar. This strategy includes encouraging the use of the yuan in global trade and investment, establishing currency swap agreements with various countries, and launching yuan-denominated financial instruments. Notably, China has urged Middle Eastern oil suppliers to accept yuan for oil transactions, and has implemented policies to facilitate the yuan's use in cross-border trade. In pursuit of financial independence from US-based institutions, China has played a key role in the BRICS bloc's initiatives to create alternative financial systems. A major development is the establishment of the New Development Bank, headquartered in Shanghai, which aims to fund infrastructure and sustainable development projects in BRICS and other emerging economies. Additionally, China has been instrumental in promoting the use of local currencies in trade among BRICS nations, thereby reducing reliance on the US dollar and mitigating exposure to currency fluctuations and geopolitical risks. These efforts reflect China's broader strategy to enhance the yuan's role in the global financial system and to build financial infrastructures that operate independently of traditional Western-dominated institutions. However, the US government views these moves as potential threats to the dollar's supremacy and has indicated a willingness to use economic measures, such as tariffs, to counteract them. The evolving dynamics between the US and BRICS countries highlight the complex interplay of economic policies and geopolitical strategies in the current global economy. China is not the only nation pursuing this approach. Russia has intensified its de-dollarization strategy. The country has increased the use of the ruble and other non-dollar currencies in trade, particularly with China and other BRICS nations. Additionally, Russia has been a strong advocate for creating alternative financial systems to lessen reliance on the US-led global financial infrastructure. In December 2023, Iran and Russia finalized an agreement to conduct bilateral trade using their national currencies, the Iranian rial and the Russian ruble, instead of the US dollar. This decision aims to strengthen economic ties between the two nations and reduce their dependence on the dollar, especially in light of the extensive US sanctions imposed on both countries. The agreement was solidified during a meeting between the central bank governors of Iran and Russia. It facilitates the use of non-SWIFT interbank systems and the establishment of bilateral brokerage relations, enabling banks and businesses in both countries to process transactions directly in their local currencies. This move is part of a broader trend among nations to de-dollarize their economies by promoting the use of local currencies in international trade. For Iran and Russia, both subject to US sanctions, this strategy is particularly significant as it provides a mechanism to mitigate the impact of these sanctions and enhance financial sovereignty. In addition to this bilateral agreement, Iran signed a free trade agreement with the Russia-led Eurasian Economic Union, EEU, on December 25, 2023. This agreement aims to eliminate customs duties on 90% of goods traded between Iran and EEU member states, further integrating Iran into regional economic frameworks and reducing dependence on Western financial systems. These developments reflect a strategic effort by Iran and Russia to build alternative financial infrastructures that operate independently of US-dominated systems, thereby enhancing their economic resilience amid ongoing geopolitical tensions. India is exploring the use of local currencies in trade to mitigate exposure to dollar fluctuations. The Reserve Bank of India has implemented mechanisms to facilitate international trade settlements in the Indian rupee, aiming to promote its use in global transactions. South Africa supports the BRICS initiative to use local currencies in trade and investment. The country is involved in discussions to establish payment systems that reduce dependence on the dollar, aligning with the broader BRICS strategy to enhance financial sovereignty. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching this video. We sincerely appreciate you joining us today. If our content resonated with you or sparked inspiration, please consider expressing your support by liking it and subscribing to stay connected with our community. Your support holds immense value for us. You can watch another video of our channel, which is now on the screen.